Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Laura, and I'm going to be talking about nonviolent communication. So we'll have a little presentation on some of the principles and then some exercises. What do you long to experience more of in relationship or in communication with yourself and with other people? And just jotting down a few of the words, a few of the qualities that come to mind. And then what do you find that gets in the way? So how come you're not able to have these qualities all the time? And just quick thoughts. It won't be thorough. We will continue it over this presentation. So we'll have a little presentation on some of the principles of nonviolent communication. It has given me clarity about our human behavior and about how we are conditioned. That we have really 10,000 years of conditioning in a consciousness of duality or of scarcity, so that there's not enough love, there's not enough resources, there's not enough goodwill, there's not enough willingness to collaborate in our conditioning. And so everything becomes a competition and a fight. And so then we disconnect. And what I found with nonviolent communication, that it allows me to go into that dynamic really with clarity and with curiosity. So it gives me the tools to understand really what's going on for me, what's at stake, and what do I want to do about it. And then the capacity to express it to another. And then it also gives me the capacity to have this curiosity to understand the other, to have an openness. What's going on for them behind what they say, right? They might say something that's very difficult for me to hear. There might be anger, there might be a judgment. So what's going on for them? What's at stake for them? What would they like to do about it? And really to create connection. So another piece that I learned with nonviolent communication is that as human beings, our biggest need is to contribute to the well-being of others. So many of us think, that actually we're just selfish and we only want to get what we want. And actually I have come to see and really believe and have experienced it so many times, that actually what nourishes us the most as human beings is when we can give to another. And the fact that I would say we are social beings, right? It takes a mother and a father to make a baby, or it takes teachers and students to make a school, or it takes people to make a company or food or roads or houses. That really we need to live and be together. But what gets in the way of our desire to collaborate? If I say, and to me it's become like a truth, that our biggest need is to collaborate or to contribute to the well-being of others. But then why doesn't it happen all the time? And why it doesn't happen is because we've lost connection. That something happens either in the exchange or in my mind or in my history or in my imagination of what you meant, or my thinking gets going and I start judging you silently, that I lose connection either with myself or with the other. And when I lose connection, I no longer want to give. So this process is kind of developed in a way a magic to be able to reconnect. So when we reconnect, our desire to give comes back. So we focus on connection instead of trying to force collaboration. Like when we try to force collaboration, then the conditioning comes back of power over and manipulation and coercion. And then if you don't do it, then I judge you and I compare and I'm better and you're bad. And so instead we try to focus on connection. Really building connection, and it's something that's very, it's energetic, it's intangible, but it's extremely strong. Like, we also come back to the body's wisdom, that the body will give us feedback. Do we feel good in this interaction? Do I have a sense of trust? Do I have a sense of safety? Do I want to walk towards energetically? And if yes, my willingness to collaborate increases. So how can we dialogue in such a way that creates connection? So nonviolent communication, obviously the word communication, this modality is looking at connection through dialogue, yeah, through how we speak and how we listen. Ultimately, it's not really about the dialogue, it's about something much deeper, but the dialogue is the means. What I find also so powerful with this process is that it can be applied to all of life. From the very intimate and kind of secret of my own inner connection and inner journey and inner soul searching, my inner growth or my spiritual practice, to my relationships with intimate people in my life, my family, my friends, all the way to the workplace and organizations, even governance, yeah, or education. So its application is really the full spectrum of life. And the other thing is that we can think, oh, because it's called nonviolent communication, it's only for when you fight. You know, it's only for when there's a conflict. And actually, its application is for all of life. It's also to help us celebrate life more, to bring in more presence, even when there isn't a so-called problem in the way. So this is kind of the very big theory. Yeah? It's maybe like, okay, Laura, so how do we put this into application? So I want to put a couple of things on the whiteboard to make it, bring it closer to home, yeah, and see how it all fits and makes sense. So if we say that any human interaction in a very simplified way is a relationship between me and you, yeah? And let's say on this scale of 1 to 10, at 10, I have a sense I feel good and that I matter. Yeah? So that the same for you from 1 to 10, if you're at a 10 in this relationship, you feel good and you have a sense that you matter. Now in the ideal, where would we want to be? The very top, yeah, I see some fingers pointing. So obviously in the ideal, we want to be at a 10-10, yeah? We want a win-win and connection. So in this exchange, I want to feel good. I want to have a sense that I matter, that my thoughts and my feelings matter, and that yours matter. And yet, are we there? Can we guarantee this outcome? Do we always make it? Yes?
No.
Yeah, no. No, right? I mean, we can say it's our aspiration, but just think of even your interactions this morning or yesterday or over the week with the auto driver, with the shopkeeper, with your landlord, with your friend, with your partner, with your mother, with your daughter.
With your wife.
With your wife. So, did you have a 10-10 with your wife all week?
I have 0-10.
You have a 0 to 10, exactly. So, which 0 to 10 was it? Was it 0-10 here? 0-10 here?
Exactly.
Damn. So, submission. So, you didn't get what you wanted, you didn't feel good, you were at a 0, and yet
I felt good also.
Apparently wife got what she wanted. That's submission. And yes, we can have the opposite, right? What's up here? I only care about me and I don't care about you. Yeah, power over dominate. Yeah, so power over, power under. What are some of the other dynamics in a very obviously oversimplified, generalized way? What do you think? So, what about this one?
Average.
Average, exactly. So it's a 50-50. It's a compromise. And many times we'll say, okay, but let's negotiate and we'll come up with a compromise, and we think that that's good. But for me, it's still based on this very deep conditioning that there's not enough. So why do we have to go for a 50-50? Why can't we aim for a 10-10 and trust that there's enough creativity and abundance to make it happen? Yeah? Another dynamic is avoid. We don't talk about it, or we talk about it and we don't get anywhere. We have no even half solution. We have a crappy solution or a no solution. So, I would say that all of these are actually quite common, unfortunately. And it's based again on this 10,000 years of conditioning that we have. In the sense of,
What do you mean by 10,000 years?
Yeah. So what we have gotten from our parents, what we have gotten from school, what we have gotten from society. Basically this concept that there's not enough, or that we are bad. Also these ideas of right and wrong, and good and bad. And they're really, really ingrained in us. So when we have this kind of thinking, automatically there's duality instead of oneness. If there's duality, automatically there's scarcity instead of abundance. If there's scarcity, there's competition. If there's competition, there's a power struggle. If there's a power struggle, there's violence. And finally, someone gets hurt. And it's a vicious cycle. So basically take the regular justice system. It doesn't actually work, right? It might help society a little bit, but ultimately it doesn't work. It has loopholes. And we're so conditioned in this way that the way we then communicate with people is in judgment, blame, demands, threats, and punishment. Very subtle. Yeah, it's not always obvious, and it's maybe not in every sentence, but it's really, really there. So what can we have as an alternative? When we do this, the automatic response of the other is here. Yeah? So if I call this life alienating thinking, right? This whole kind of conditioning that we have and the way that we end up speaking. And it's all ending up creating these dynamics. What's the alternative? Life enriching thinking. And here, I want to focus on, like I said earlier, creating connection. Now, how am I going to create this connection? On my axis, what do I need to do? How do I need to show up to have a sense of feeling good and mattering? I need to express my clarity. And how do I support the other person
Listen.
to feel good and to have a sense that they matter? I have to listen to you. Yeah, and that from here the solution will come. Like often we want the solution, we already have an idea of what it should be, but we fall back into this consciousness and we try to manipulate or outsmart or convince someone to behave in a certain way. So actually I'm not here, I've fallen back. And so what we say here is really if we create connection, naturally people will want to collaborate, but in a way that's really good for both of us. And how we do it is expressing my clarity and really listening to the other and trusting the solution will come. We don't need to create it and force it. It will come and it will be unexpected. And that's really the only way that we get an outcome that's beyond expectations and that's in alignment for both of us. So imagining now that life happens. And do I choose to react or respond? Yeah? React unconsciously versus respond with consciousness, respond with choice. So for example, I shared this justice project that I have. And we've been trying to apply for a budget. So far we've been doing it for free. I wrote a woman named Jenny, and not that she makes decisions about budgets, but to register our project as what's called a service. That's how it works in our community. And then it could go to the budget group and maybe get a budget for the year. So we wrote her explaining this, or I wrote her explaining this on behalf of the team. And her response was that it's very unlikely that the budget group would give us a budget, and that I should know that the economy in Oracle is not very lucrative, and that anyway it's redundant work because there's also a mediation cell in Oracle. So our work is similar but not. So I receive this message in life, this stimulus in life. Now what am I going to do with it? Do I want to react? Or do I want to respond? So my reaction could be, let's say in my head before I actually do it out loud. Oh my God, Jenny, you obviously don't understand our work. Or, how am I supposed to work in Oracle and really make a difference if there's no money? Now, do you notice how that thinking, those thoughts are more on this side? Like that I'm doing kind of this? So I'm judging her. And there's a subtle blame of that Oracle should pay me. Or someone should pay me. Yeah? And I'm obviously the good one. And I'm implying in a way, the bad one, or the stupid one, or the one who doesn't understand. Now, obviously I'm being a little bit dramatic and having strong thoughts, but even subtly it's there. So imagine that I express these thoughts to Jenny. What's going to happen? If I say out loud, "But Jenny, what are you talking about? You obviously don't understand our project." Yeah, she will feel judged, and she will likely either be defensive or even judge me back, like, "Laura, you're so arrogant. Nobody asked you to do this job. You decided to do it yourself. So deal with the consequences." Yeah? So if I speak to her that way, if I respond to life that way or react to life that way, the likelihood that she will react in a similar way is very high. And what does that give me? From kind of this part of my brain to this part of her brain, we're gonna have toxicity. Yeah, this back and forth, and then we're in a fight. And we'll end up in one of these. And probably not even the compromise. We'll end up in a worse place. So in this process, if you remember a couple of minutes ago in the beginning, I was saying that we rely on the body's wisdom. So actually it's an invitation for presence. So instead of being up here in my head in the toxic place and the reactive place, coming lower down. So first, what did my eyes see? Or what did my ears hear? Yeah, so first is, what's the observation and not my evaluation of it? My evaluation could be, she doesn't understand. She's not curious. But what actually happened? What actually happened is that I received an email in response to my mail, and Jenny said, if I can't remember exactly the words, but something like, "Laura, why don't you work in collaboration with the mediation cell, and you know that there's not much money in the budget, and the likelihood the budget group would give you money is very low." That's what actually happened. Now, if I use more of the body's wisdom, how do I feel? Yeah, what's my feeling and not my accusation? So when I receive that and when I think about it, I feel sad. And I feel discouraged. Versus, I feel misunderstood. Or I feel unacknowledged. Do you see how those are actually accusations that she doesn't understand me and she doesn't acknowledge me? So many times we use they sound like feeling words, but they're actually masked accusations. So I feel misunderstood. I'm accusing you of not understanding me. So I felt sad, and even maybe I'll erase some of this. I felt sad, and I felt discouraged. Now we go even deeper into this area. And if those of you who practice martial arts, we talk about the 1 point or ki or hara, that's a little bit below our belly buttons, and that this is really our center of gravity. Yeah, it's where our power comes from. In martial arts, we train and focus in this area. So we go into asking, what am I needing? What am I longing for? And it's the same question that I asked you at the beginning. What do you long to experience more of, yeah? Or what would you wish to have more of in your connection with yourself or others? So the same, what was I longing for? So my needs or longings, and not strategy. So what I was longing for was acknowledgement, yeah? Acknowledgement that our project has been amazingly received in the community as being really needed and making a huge contribution and people wanting more of it. And yet we're 6 people working for free. And so wanting acknowledgement about that and also wanting support. So I can even say financial support. Now, a strategy would be that the budget committee gives me money. That's maybe what I would like the outcome to look like eventually if it works for them also. But we need to differentiate between what the need is, the longing, and what the actual strategy. So on this level, it's more universal. Yeah, that I imagine all of you can connect to having a need for acknowledgement sometimes in your lives, or having a need for support. But maybe you don't need money from Oracle's budget committee. So the strategy is the specificity of it. Now, once I know my need, I can look at what I want to request, what action I want to put into place, and it's not a demand. So very often, we go from this place and we want to jump down here. So she doesn't understand, she's stupid. I write a nasty email back. Yeah, it's the reactivity of this consciousness. And I haven't taken any time to actually listen to my body's wisdom, to get feedback from actually what is going on, not what's going on in my mind, because that's very conditioned in this, and it doesn't get me far. But what's the truth of what's going on? The truth of what's going on is I feel sad and discouraged, and I'm really longing for some acknowledgement and support. And if I write a nasty email back, am I going to get acknowledgement and support? No. So I defeat my own purpose when I behave this way. Actually, this is what I want, but I behave this way, so and I don't get what I want. And then we are worse and worse in the blame game. Now, there's not only me in this story. There's also Jenny. She also has feelings. She also has needs. She also has things that she would like to request, or things that she would like to be put in place. So she's not right here, but I can imagine that maybe she's feeling concerned. Maybe even a little bit impatient from her perspective. And maybe she's needing to be understood. To be understood that she's not deciding, she's just doing her job. Of the person, kind of the in-between, who just said, I don't think you have much hope or much chance. That's all she's doing. And I imagine she wants coherence. So she said something about that I should work in collaboration with the mediation cell, and that it's something about being redundant. She said you can't have thousands of projects in Oracle and expect that they all be funded. That we need to work under umbrellas. So I imagine she's needing coherence. So if we come back to what I was saying earlier, that it's really about creating connection, what we do in this particular modality of nonviolent communication is expressing my feelings and needs and listening to hers. And it's a dialogue process. So my feelings and needs, her feelings and needs, my feelings and needs and hers. And that from this place comes the win-win. From this place we will see what we do about it. But again, that the solution will come to us. We don't have to force it, and we We don't have to rush it. Once we really have exchanged what's going on and exchanged deeply, clarity will emerge. So, if you look at your first question that I asked you, of what do you long to experience more of in your interaction or relationship with yourself and with others, and what gets in the way, how would you now explain that based on what we've seen here? So I open up the space for kind of questions and answers and responses. What are some of the things that you said that you would long to experience more of?
I've written self-appreciation and self-acceptance, as I said.
Yes.
And socially, I think I long for trust.
So self-acceptance, trust. Anything else?
Self-appreciation.
Self-appreciation. Self-acceptance, self-appreciation, trust. Thank you. Any others? What do you long to experience more of in relationship with yourself or others?
Well, a lot of times we judge each other
Yeah.
with every single way.
So non-judgment then? Yeah. Even something like maybe acceptance?
Yeah, but maybe from the others, not the self-acceptance. but
Yeah,
the
from
acceptance.
others. Yeah. Any others?
Maybe a little bit more open-minded,
Yeah.
to work on my limiting beliefs, convictions.
Yeah. And then would you even say growth? If I work on my limiting beliefs, then growth? Yeah.
So I've written from happiness is the finality
Yeah.
of this.
Yes.
Also, what you wish to have, what everyone wishes to have in conversations with self as well as others is to the maximum. It's truth,
Yes.
truthfulness,
Yes.
and transparency.
Yes.
But for me, it's also sometimes tricky is that in certain moments I'm living different feelings, but I'm not able to name those feelings,
Yeah.
not to express them.
Yes.
So to be able to understand clearly.
So to be able to clearly express. Yeah. Clarity in expression.
So what I have written is to have more meaningful conversations.
Meaning. Depth.
And just,
Yeah. Talk silly.
a conversation doesn't lead to anything.
Yeah. So meaning, can I add depth?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I written.
Yeah,
Deep
yeah.
and meaningful conversations.
Now, would you kind of agree that what you long for is up here? If you had to place your longings onto our chart? And what gets in the way then? How come you're not able to live these all the time?
The head.
Yeah, all the toxic thinking. So, did you guys write some things down? What's your version of the toxic thinking?
I'm always noticing more of my negatives rather
Yeah.
than positives.
So, focusing on the negative or noticing the negative.
Circumstances, sometimes the mode of communication.
Yeah.
It's not always possible to have a face-to-face conversation. And ego at times.
Yes.
And moods.
Yes.
Mood swings.
Ego and moods and circumstances, and even how I take circumstances, that I allow them to limit. So would you agree that that all kind of comes from that conditioning of scarcity and of good or bad, right and wrong, that there's not enough? So it's ironic that, yeah, we all long for these things, and I would even call them universal human needs, that really every human being has this at different times in their life, and yet we don't walk towards it. We do other things, yeah? We play the blame game.
Yes.
So, these are all needs. What are some versions of different feelings? Can you just name out? Happy, sad,
Anger.
angry, frustrated.
Fear. Fear.
Yeah.
Lust.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Surprised?
Depression.
Depression. Yeah. Okay, enough. Huh? Worry. So, would you again be in agreement that all human beings have these at different times? So then why do we separate so easily? See, so what the nonviolent communication process offers us is this, the capacity, the skills, the clarity of actually how to see our oneness, how to see our similarity. I have feelings, that means you have feelings. I have needs, that means you have needs. So let's play the game together and go towards collaboration. Instead of stay in the head and fight about ideas or exactly how we're going to, do the thing or get the matter finished. So really to go into a deeper place, and from there, the outcome unfolds. So, any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm finding the words to put it like this, but we said there should be a good and a bad. But I agree. But I also feel right now that this is the good way of living, and they're doing the bad way, or we are doing the bad way. So there's still good and bad.
Thank you. Thank you for the honesty. So, our attempt is really not to create more duality, because duality is obviously what separates us. Here is a process that offers us a way of engaging that sees that actually we're not separate. And it's not about judging that you don't do life this way. It's my responsibility, if it speaks to me, obviously. If it speaks to me, it's my responsibility to live this, and that I can do it for me in my interaction with Jenny. I don't need Jenny to do anything different. Am I really, this is where we get to see actually, like, am I genuine? Am I coherent in what I say? So, if I claim that I'd like to live up here, yeah, and then I say, oh, but I can't because Jenny doesn't do it, or because actually my way of speaking is better than Jenny's, oh, I've fallen back here. I think I'm good and she's bad. So I like that you pointed out, and it is really my, it's my work, yeah, to do the process on myself and with myself in relationship to the world. And the magic of, and we will get to see it also in the exercises, the magic of when I engage this way, that the other being is touched. Because they feel received, and they feel not judged, they feel accepted. And then they can just be. They can feel safe being who they are. And it's my work. Does that answer anyway, or yeah?
Because it can be easy to judge. I'm doing
Absolutely,
this,
yeah, and to create a superiority complex, yeah. And here I give you a snippet, yeah? Hopefully there'll be a 2-day training where you could get the full spectrum, yeah.
And do you really feel that everyone has these needs? Because sometimes you see people on the news, for example, Donald Trump or something,
Yeah.
someone like him. I don't really see his needs for this. So do you feel that everyone has this? Or?
Yes. So thank you again for the question. What I have gotten through NVC, and it's become an absolute belief and truth for me, is that everything we do and everything another person does and everything I say and everything another person says is an attempt to meet a beautiful need. The strategy may suck because the person is not in alignment, or because they're just doing their conditioning, just like I'm very much doing my conditioning. So they've gone from here to here without having passed through the body's wisdom. And I imagine that Donald Trump wants belonging, wants recognition, even probably wants to contribute. But it's true that we may not like his strategies for what he does. Yeah? What he does with it is a different story. Or connection, the way he speaks about women. Yeah? Or intimacy. So what I find actually is that this process allows me to have connection with any person on the planet. Doesn't mean I like their strategy, and I can give them feedback about what I think about their strategy. But I know deep down they are attempting to meet a really beautiful, universal human need. So going back to justice, this work, my justice project, is tiny, yeah, and we don't really have any intense crime. But there is this work being applied in prisons across the world, and that it's profound. That you have criminals who are received with somebody from a nonviolent communication consciousness, and where, not because they're forced, yeah, not because they're judged, but where naturally they go into a place of seeing the impact and wanting to take responsibility. That they have a life-changing shift because they were received in this way instead of in the old paradigm.
One question I have, because you say it's a process, NVC is a process. I'm just curious to know, do you propose some technology or some tools because this is the theory.
Yeah.
How to achieve this from your...
So it's a 2-day training, and actually in France they even have a level 1 and a level 2. I would hope that in India, if there's good feedback for it, that we would also implement a level 2. So now it's a 2-day training, and there's a lot of exercises, but ultimately it's your own inner commitment, your own inner showing up with this to change the culture. Now, maybe one more piece, and then you let me know if I've answered or not. If we go back to this diagram, yeah? And we're aiming in this direction. It's the same if we look at Decathlon's forward movement of here, this structure being about fear and control. Yeah, and the Decathlon is moving towards networking and a team of teams. And teal. It's the same. To achieve teal, as individuals, we need to be able to be here. But it is an individual practice to change the culture. Have I answered?
Partially, but what I'm looking more is you propose some kind of tools to do with your the system mechanism.
In the training, there are...
To be able to live with oneness with others.
Yeah, okay, maybe. So in the training, there are a lot of exercises, and all of them are usable then after the training.
After the training.
We do many.
Yeah.
And also I integrate, and maybe today if we have time, some Aikido principles to bring us back into a space of presence. And what we are talking about with Antoine also is to possibly have a webinar once a month or so for people who have attended the training, so that they can practice more within the company.
Yeah, because I think that will make this
Absolutely, no.
process
This
complete.
is. I mean, I've given you a snippet. It's a very dense program, and it has a lot. It's very deep, and yes, to fully live it takes time. I mean, I'm 11 years in, and I still struggle. So, yeah. But I mean, we're human. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so you told that you spoke with Jenny regarding starting a nonviolent communication and all. But in that situation, you both are some business people who are just trying to interact with each other in bringing something. But when it comes to a corporate where hierarchy is followed, one has to listen to others. What is the thing which comes when whether this nonviolent communication works in that particular situation?
Yeah.
How do you think how much person it works in the corporate? That is one question where hierarchy is very much followed.
Yes. So, again, my context is different. Yeah, I can't pretend that I know exactly what happens in Decathlon. Although my understanding is quite revolutionary and moving more and more away from the hierarchy to networking and a team of teams. This process can be lived anywhere in life. Whether somebody has power over me or whether I have power over somebody, I can still choose to engage in such a way that comes to win-win. The person over me still has needs, and they're still a human being, and they still want to connect, as well as the person under me. So I'm realizing I'm giving you a very simplified answer and maybe not going into the details and explaining, but that this application can be everywhere. Yeah, and I mean it's very much in resonance, yeah, with a teal culture, which is my understanding of where Decathlon is aiming for eventually. So shall we go into some exercises? Yeah, Antoine's ready. On your pieces of paper, could you write down a statement that you received from somebody that was hard for you to hear? Like, for example, that Jenny said to me, you should collaborate with the mediation cell, and it's unlikely the budget group will give you a budget. That was a hard message for me to receive. So write on your paper, just think of like the last week or the last month, even the last year if you need to go back further, where somebody said a message to you that you didn't really enjoy hearing. And it could be in Decathlon, in your team, at home, on the street, with your friends, at the bar, anywhere. Okay? So taking maybe 2 minutes just to remember a situation and write down the statement that they said to you. So maybe if you could get into groups of 3 or 4, just in little clusters. Choose as many